Welcome to Hye Roots, Descendants of Ararat. I am your host, Georgia Jan, and we have a very special guest for this episode of Hye Roots, Camille Andrus from Family Search. Camille and I connected almost a decade ago through our shared interest in Armenian genealogy. Not only is she an expert on the Armenian collection at Family Search, but she is a highly trained and credentialed genealogist in her own right. Hi, Camille.
Hey, George. Thanks for having me.
Great to have you here. Tell us a little bit about yourself and what led you to your interest in Armenian genealogy.
Sure. So I started off in my genealogy journey going to Brigham Young University, where I studied to be a genealogist, and I graduated from their genealogy and family history program. And after that, I went to Armenia and I lived there for about a year and a half. And so this was just after I had graduated. So I was extremely interested in genealogy and, of course, had to know all the things about Armenia and how their genealogy worked there, right? Because I am not ethnic Armenian at all. But because of my experience there, I have, grown to love the people and their history. So that's my introduction of how I got into Armenian genealogy specifically. Otherwise, I would have had no connection to it. But ever since then, I have delved into research and expanded my knowledge of how to read the records. And, I learned how to speak it and read it when I was there. And I just loved it. So now I have gone through and used records on familysearch.org and other places to grow family trees for Armenians from more or less what's now the Republic of Armenia.
This collection of material related to areas of Armenia that fell within the Russian Empire was primarily filmed after the collapse of the Soviet Union. The records are organized according to their location within modern borders. One of the wonderful aspects of Family Search Library is that you can access information about the collection through a free account on the website familysearch.org. Mm-hmm. Let's start with a basic search for the region of Armenia. Maybe you can walk us through a little bit about the various categories and the ways to identify what is accessible online versus records that can only be viewed at the Family Search Library in Salt Lake City.
So, as George mentioned, you can make a free account on familysearch.org, and then you'll start off at this kind of homepage, and then you can go to Family Tree or Search. So search, you can find records in a number of ways. But first, let's talk about the catalog. So here we can identify a location. So if we just type in Armenia, for example, this is going to bring us up for records for essentially the modern Republic of Armenia. And there are various censuses that are available, as well as history books about the area, which of course would be available in physical form at the library in Salt Lake. But then you can also find records such as orphans records. I find those really fascinating because there were a lot of orphans in this area for various reasons. So those are fascinating to look at. But for example, if we drill down into a more specific area, we can start with the country and then work our way down. So for example, you can say, I want to look at the area of Abovian, right? And then you can look at the church records that are available for that spot. Or you can specifically say, I want to look at a specific village, for example, Khazarabat. And here we can see that there are 3 listings for it. And that's because it's listing the place during the Russian Empire time period, as well as the modern jurisdictions, and as well as its name during the Soviet period. So all of these will bring you to the same records, but it just is helpful if you only know the old name of the town, you can type that in. Otherwise, if you are looking for the modern name of the town, you can also find that too. That's an important thing to note. So if we click on update, we'll see that for Khazarabad, we actually only have church records that are cataloged at the moment for this location. So all of these 3 items are all church records, and they're actually going to the same collection, just in different languages. So here we can see that these are Armenian Apostolic Church records, again, for the village of Khazarabad. And we can see down here in the film notes, so this is going to tell us where the records are coming from. So these happen to be coming from the Central Historical Archive in Yerevan. And that's where a large portion of the records that Family Search has come from this archive. And then if you happen to go to that archive, you could find these same exact records. You could find the originals using these numbers up here. So the fond, series, and file numbers are what's going to help you if you wanted to go see the originals at the archive in Yerevan. But if you don't want to travel, you don't have to. You can instead come and view them online. So we see the little camera icon here on the right, and that will bring us to the actual images. So from this particular view, you have to look kind of carefully because of the way that these records are organized. So, for example, we can see it's volume 47 to 106. So this is telling us our fond number, our series number, and our file number. Now, these are going to be really important because sometimes when you're looking at the film, see you have item 6. So on item 6, you can have one file or you could have many files within that same item. So that's why it's helpful to look for these numbers as you're navigating through the images. So even though the physical microfilm of these, the copies of these original records are in the Granite Mountain Record Vault, so you can't actually see the microfilm. You can see the digitized images, as you can see here. So then if you would just click on here and we want to go to item 6. Then we get our images and we just scroll down. So we see item 2, but we want item 6. Here we go. Okay, so here's item 6. And we can confirm that this is the volume that we want, and this is the time period. And then as we continue to scroll through the images, we can see again our location and the time period, etc. So as we go through, again, we'll see the little cover page for the year for this church. And then we get into the actual entries that you can read and look for your family in them. So that's essentially how to navigate these.
Excellent, thank you, Camille. And as you can see, when you look at that screen and the image, if you find something that's pertinent to your own family, you have the ability to download that image and store it on your computer as well for your own reference. So that's another benefit to the collection. One of the items that I noticed in the search that you pulled up on Armenia was a collection of records pertaining to those who had repatriated to Soviet Armenia following World War II. And I find those fascinating. Between 1946 and 1949, approximately 90,000 Armenians from 12 countries repatriated. The reasons behind the repatriation are complex, as are the residual impacts on both Soviet Armenia and diasporan communities. but the genealogical value of such a collection is significant. Generally, the records are first organized by country of origin and then into groups that they traveled with. Finally, they are ordered by surname groupings with similar sounding beginnings. Maybe, Camille, you can walk us through that collection as well.
Sure. Okay, so back on our search screen, when we typed in Armenia, we had the emigration and immigration drop-down menu. So here we can see that there are many different collections, as George mentioned. So if we click on the first one, for example, we'll see that these are people from America who went back in the late 40s. So again, they have the volume numbers, and then there's a little inventory, and then it'll show you the names that are inclusive in this, or the range of the names. So if we click on our format, and we have our little camera icon, and we want items 1 through 2. Okay. So here, if we zoom in, we'll be able to see our title page. And here's our inventory. So if you wanted to get to it faster, you can look through these to see if you can find the person you're looking for. But then if you actually get into item 2, we can see, okay, here's the person's name again, and then it will start with their actual pages about the family.
That's excellent information, Camille. Thank you so much. I think maybe now it might be useful to give an example of one family or person that you've seen in your own research that might be helpful and useful to people in making use of these records.
So we're going to talk about a lady named Azganush. Her parents were Melik and Zarhalam. In America, Azganush used multiple names, and so those will be important to keep track of when you're researching. However, for the purposes of this discussion, we will call her Azganush Karapetyan. Azganush was originally born in what is now Armenia and came to the United States in the 1920s. Additional family members, including aunts and uncles and cousins, also came to the United States in the 1920s. So initially, all we knew was that she was from Armenia, or even just Russia, here meaning the Russian Empire. However, other records listed places such as Erevan or even Alexandropol, but those weren't really the village she was from. And by exploring additional records, specifically the naturalization records and alien files, we were able to discover that the village the family came from originally was called Kazarabat. Today, this town is called Isahakyan and is located in the northwest province of Armenia. So to help identify where this place called Kazarabat is located, I used a gazetteer or place name dictionary, basically, of the Erevan gubernia or province within the Russian Empire. So it's available online, and you can access it through the Family Search Wiki. So you can look up the alphabetical list of places, but in this case, we already knew that it was going to be in the Alexandropol district because of various records that we had found in the United States. Again, listing her being from Erevan, from Alexandropol, and also from Kazarabad. We can narrow down where she's really from. So in this case, Alexandropol, they're not talking about the city, now known as Gyumri, they're talking about the district of the same name. So if we go within this, we can either manually look through each of the villages within this district. Again, this is in Russian because it is a Russian publication made by the Russian Empire government, okay, based on tax lists, which we'll talk about later. Or you can come to the alphabetical list of places and search in the list, and then identify the corresponding number for your entry that you're interested in. Note there may be several villages with the same name in various districts, so use caution when you're looking at these. Okay. So if we scroll down, we see, okay, 1160. So this is our entry number in the gazetteer. We see Kazarabat, and it's a village with our little D. And then we can see that there are 42 households. And of those, we have our lists of how many men and how many women are listed in the town. So 183 men and 170 women. They are primarily ethnic Armenians, and they're of the Gregorian faith or Armenian Apostolic faith. Okay, but in here you're going to see them called Gregorian after Grigor Lysivorich. Okay. So seeing this, this helps us to know what record types we're going to be looking for, and it can help us determine if it's the right town. So sometimes you'll have a town of the same name, but it will have a different ethnic makeup of the town. So then you can say, okay, well, that's likely not the one I'm looking for, and then identify which one you are looking for. So in this case, it has Armenians of the Apostolic faith, which is what we would expect based on the information we found in the US records. So from here, we've identified our town and we've located it within the Alexandropol district, within the Yerevan province of the Russian Empire. So that helps us locate where it is. So using that information, we can now look on family search. Okay, so we're going to go search and then images. And then we'll type in our location here. So Kazarabat. Now notice that there are 3 locations. One which is our Kazarabat, our village, with Alexandropol district within Yerevan gubernia or province within the Russian Empire. Also notice that these other 2 options have an alternate name also of Kazarabat. In this instance, all 3 of these are talking about the same village. This isn't always the case. So sometimes if you type in a very common location name, you may get additional options here that are not talking about the same village. So be cautious when you're looking at that. Also notice that they have different time periods. So depending on the record set that you're looking for and the time period of that set of those records, you may need to click on different localities on here for the different time periods. So in our case, we're looking for records from this time period. So we'll click on our entry for Kasarabad instead of the other two. Okay. So from here, we can see that there are currently 43 results. And on the right, we have, again, the place that we looked for. We can see that it has the option for the Alexandropol district, Yerevan province, and then within the Russian Empire. We also can see a map of where it's located. Now, this can be helpful if you're trying to figure out where things are. So you can back out and see context for what other locations are near where you are. Okay. You can also see other information such as the record types, the title of the specific collection, the creator, the archival reference, and etc. You can also change those options that you want to see here. The main things to look at are, for example, we want the Armenian Apostolic Church, as discussed. And we can also see, okay, here's the date. So, or usually it's a year or year range for this specific item. And also the types of records. So here's baptisms, burials, and marriages. So you can simply search for the year that you want, or you can use the tools on the right to filter for specific years. And then you would just click on the item that you want. So we say we wanted 1876. So we can see that 1876 for this particular village and religion only has 6 images, right? So it's a very small village. So open it up. And again, we just get our little title page and it will tell us the archive number. So we also have Alexandropol Gavari. So it's the Alexandropol district, and it's specifically telling us the name of the village, Azarabat, and it's telling us the name of the church, and that these are the metrical books or the church records. Okay. And then you can simply scroll through and look for your church records that you're interested in.
Thank you so much, Camille. We have only touched on a small portion of what is possible through family search. In this episode for Hye Roots Descendants of Ararat, we wanted to supply an initial exposure to the wonderful resources available. In the future, we hope to delve more deeply into additional features from family search. If you have a question about this episode or an idea for a future episode, please contact us at hieroots@hairenik.com. Thank you for joining us.